The Galactic Military Academy on Station Orth-7 had a big problem. A problem that no one could solve. Commander Veth stood at the window of his office. He was a Kesari, a tall reptile-like alien with dark green scales and yellow eyes. He had been a soldier for 40 years. He had fought in 3 wars. He had never been scared of anything in his life. But right now, he was scared. Below his window, in the large training room, 12 young creatures were destroying everything. They were Valorant cubs. Each one was the size of a small horse. They had thick silver fur and golden eyes. Their claws were sharp, enough to cut through metal. Their teeth could crush bone like paper. The Valorant were the most dangerous species in the galaxy. When they grew up, they became the best soldiers anyone had ever seen. Armies paid millions to have even one adult Valorant fighter. But their children were wild. They could not control themselves. They attacked everything and everyone until they grew up at age 15. These 12 cubs were orphans. Their parents had died in a war. The Academy had agreed to take care of them and train them. It was supposed to make peace between humans and the Valorant people. Now, Veth wished he had never agreed to this. He watched as one of the cubs bit through a training robot made of pure titanium. The robot cost more than most starships. The cub destroyed it in 3 seconds. "Sir," said his assistant, a small blue alien named Pick, "we have lost another handler today." Veth closed his eyes. "How bad?" 3 broken ribs, a torn shoulder, bite marks on both legs. Pick looked at his tablet. "That makes 17 handlers in 2 months. No one lasts more than a few minutes with the cubs." "We have tried everything," Veth said. His voice was tired. "Kesari warriors, Talon mind readers, even a Grothian who could talk to animals. The cubs hurt them all. There is one more person on the list," Pick said slowly. "But I do not think you will like it. Show me." Pick held up his tablet. A picture appeared. It showed a young human woman with a round face and dark hair. She was smiling in the photo. She looked very small and very soft. "Her name is Han Yuna," Pick said. "She is 26 years old. She works in our maintenance department. She fixes broken lights and cleans air filters." Veth stared at the picture. "This is a joke." "No, sir. Before she came to the station, she worked at something called a daycare center on Earth. It is a place where humans leave their young children while they work. A babysitter?" Veth could not believe what he was hearing. "You want to send a human babysitter to handle Valorant cubs? They will kill her in seconds. With respect, sir, everyone else has failed. She's the only person left." Pick put down his tablet. "What do we have to lose?" Veth looked back at the training room. One of the cubs was now fighting with another cub. They rolled across the floor, biting and scratching. The walls were covered with claw marks. The floor was covered with broken equipment. "Fine," Veth said. "Bring her to me." Han Yuna arrived at Veth's office 1 hour later. She was even smaller in person than in her photo. She barely reached Veth's chest. Her maintenance uniform was gray and simple. She did not look scared at all. This bothered Veth. Everyone was scared of him. He was 2 meters tall and covered in scales. His teeth were sharp. His claws were sharper. But this tiny human woman just stood in front of him with a calm expression, like she was waiting for a bus. "You want me to take care of alien children?" she asked. "Train them," Veth corrected. "Teach them discipline. Teach them to follow orders." "How long did the last person last?" 6 minutes. Yuna nodded slowly. She did not seem surprised. "What is their daily schedule?" Veth blinked. "Their what?" "Their schedule. When do they wake up? When do they eat? When do they sleep? When do they play?" "They are Valorant cubs," Veth said. They do not have schedules. They are wild animals. They do whatever they want. Yuna smiled. It was a small smile, but it changed her whole face. Suddenly, she did not look soft anymore. She looked like someone who knew something that Veth did not. "That is your first problem, Commander," she said. "Every child needs a schedule. It does not matter if they are human or Valoran or anything else. Children feel safe when they know what comes next. These cubs do not feel safe. That is why they are so wild." Veth did not know what to say. No one had ever talked to him like this before. This small human woman was telling him, a commander with 40 years of experience, that he was wrong. "The cubs have hurt 17 trained handlers," he said slowly. "What makes you think you can do better?" Yuna shrugged. "I spent 5 years taking care of human toddlers. 20 children in one room. They would bite, scratch, kick, and scream. They would throw food. They would break things. Some days I wanted to cry." She paused. "But I never gave up on them. And they never really hurt me. Human children do not have claws that can cut through metal." "No," Yuna agreed. "But angry children are angry children. The claws are just details." Veth looked at her for a long time. She was either very brave or very stupid. He could not tell which. "Fine," he said at last. "You start tomorrow. I will be watching from the observation room. If things go wrong, I will send soldiers to pull you out." "They will not need to," Yuna said. She turned and walked out of his office. Veth watched her go. He had a strange feeling in his chest. It was something he had not felt in a very long time. Thought it was hope. The next morning, Yuna walked into the training compound alone. She carried a small bag over her shoulder and a tablet in her hand. She was not wearing any armor. She had no weapons. The guards at the door looked at her like she was crazy. "Are you sure about this?" one guard asked. He was a big alien with 4 arms and worried eyes. "We can give you a shield. Or a stun gun. Something." Yuna shook her head. "That will only make things worse." "Thank you." She stepped through the door. It closed behind her with a heavy sound. The training room was huge. It was the size of a football field. The walls were made of thick metal, covered with deep scratch marks. Broken equipment lay everywhere. The air smelled like animals. Yuna stood still and waited. She did not have to wait long. The cubs came out of the shadows. They moved like ghosts, silent and fast. Their silver fur caught the light. Their golden eyes glowed in the dim room. They were beautiful and terrifying at the same time. The largest cub came first. He was almost as big as Yuna. His fur was darker than the others, almost gray. He growled low in his throat. The sound made Yuna's bones shake. She named him Taiho in her mind. He looked like a Taiho. The other cubs spread out in a circle around her. They were hunting. This is what they did to all the handlers. They would circle, then attack from all sides. Yuna did something no handler had ever done before. She sat down on the floor. The cubs stopped moving. They looked confused. Every other person who had come into this room had tried to look big and strong. They had shouted commands. They had waved weapons. This tiny human just sat on the ground like she was having a picnic. Taiho tilted his head. He did not understand. Was this a trick? Yuna opened her bag. She pulled out a thick blanket. Then another blanket. Then another. She spread them on the floor in the corner of the room, making a soft pile. "You all look very tired," she said in a calm voice. She did not look directly at the cubs. She had read that looking into a predator's eyes was a challenge. She kept her eyes on the blankets. "No one has been taking care of you properly. That must be very hard." She pulled out more blankets. The pile grew bigger and softer. The smallest cub took a step forward. She was half the size of Taiho, with fur that was almost white. Yuna named her Bomi. "It is nap time now," Yuna announced. "Everyone needs to rest." She began to hum. It was a simple song, something her mother used to sing to her when she was little. The melody was low and slow and gentle. Bomi's ears twitched. She took another step toward the blankets. Then another dot in the observation room above. Commander Veth pressed his face against the glass. His assistant Pick stood beside him, his mouth open in shock. "What is she doing?" Veth whispered. "Bom, I reached the blanket pile." She sniffed it carefully. She walked in a circle, once, twice. Then she flopped down onto the soft fabric with a heavy sigh. One by one, the other cubs followed. They approached slowly, still unsure. But the humming sound was nice. The blankets were warm. And for the first time in months, no one was yelling at them or pointing weapons at them. Within 20 minutes, all 12 cubs were asleep. They lay in a big pile, their bodies pressed together, their breathing slow and peaceful. Yuna sat beside them, still humming, like a mother watching over her children. Pick checked the readings on his tablet. "Sir, their stress levels have dropped by 60%. Their heart rates are normal. They are actually sleeping peacefully." Veth could not speak. He just stared at the impossible scene below. Over the next 7 days, Yuna created a schedule. Every morning at 6, she would enter the compound and wake the cubs gently. She would stroke their fur and speak softly until they opened their eyes. No more loud alarms or shouting. At 7, she gave them breakfast. Before, the academy had just thrown raw meat into the room like the cubs were wild animals in a zoo. Yuna stopped and immediately. She gave each cub their own bowl. She made them wait until everyone had food before they could eat. The cubs did not like this rule at first, but Yuna was patient. She would wait as long as necessary. At 9, they did physical training, but not the combat drills the academy had planned. Yuna made them play games instead. She would throw balls for them to chase. She would hide treats around the room for them to find. The cubs ran and jumped and used their energy in good ways. At 11, they had quiet time. Yuna gave them puzzle toys that made them think. She gave them things to chew on that were safe for their teeth. The cubs learned to be calm without being bored. At 1 o'clock, nap time. This was the most important part of the day. Yuna was very strict about nap time. The cubs had to lie down, close their eyes, and rest. At first they resisted, but Yuna would sit with them and hum her song until they fell asleep. The academy trainers complained. These cubs were supposed to become warriors. Why were they sleeping and playing like babies? Commander Veth showed them the results. In 1 week, there had been 0 injuries, 0 property damage. The cubs were starting to follow simple commands. They came when Yuna called their names. They sat when she told them to sit. They stopped fighting each other. Most importantly, they were happy. For the first time since coming to the academy, the Valorant cubs were actually happy. She's not making them weak, Veth told the trainers. She is making them stable. There is a difference. On the 7th day, something amazing happened. Yuna was sitting with the cubs during quiet time. She was reading something on her tablet when she felt a heavy weight on her lap. She looked down. Taeho had put his massive head on her legs. His eyes were closed. A deep rumbling sound came from his chest. He was purring. Yuna smiled and gently scratched behind his ears. Around her, the other cubs moved closer. They pressed their warm bodies against her sides. They were not hunting her anymore. They were protecting her. In the observation room, Pick turned to Commander Veth. "Sir, I think the human has done the impossible." Veth nodded slowly. "I think you are right. And I think this is only the beginning." Not everyone was happy with Yuna's success. Senior Instructor Greth was a Valorant adult. He stood nearly 3 meters tall, with muscles like steel cables and claws like curved knives. His silver fur was marked with old battle scars. He was one of the most respected warriors in the galaxy. He had been sent to the academy to train the cubs in combat, to teach them the Valorant way. But for 2 months now, he had been forced to watch from the observation room while a tiny human woman made the cubs take naps and play games. It made him sick. This is wrong. Greth growled at Commander Veth. They were standing in Veth's office, and Greth's claws were leaving marks on the floor. She is ruining them. She is making them soft, weak. They will never be true Valorant warriors. Veth remained calm. He had dealt with angry Valorant before. The cubs are healthy and stable for the first time. They follow commands. They do not attack anyone, because they have been turned into pets. Greth's voice echoed off the walls. In our culture, cubs learn through strength, through challenge. They fight each other. They learn who is strongest. This is how Valorant have raised our young for 1,000 generations. That method was not working here, Veth said simply, because no one gave it enough time. Greth slammed his fist on Veth's desk. The metal dented. I request permission to take over their training. 1 session. Let me show you what Valorant cubs can truly become. Veth thought about this for a long moment. The cubs were technically Valorant. Greth had authority over their cultural education, and the diplomatic relationship with the Valorant people was important. Fine, Veth said at last. You have 1 session, but Han Yuna stays in the room. If things go wrong, she may be able to calm them. Greth showed his teeth. It was not a smile. Things will not go wrong, Commander. I promise you that. The next day, Greth entered the training compound during quiet time. The cubs were relaxed. Some were chewing on toys. Others were dozing in the blanket pile. Yuna sat in the middle of them, reading stories from her tablet in a soft voice. Peace filled the room. Like warm sunlight, Greth destroyed it in seconds. On your feet. He roared in the Valorant command language. The words were harsh and sharp. Training begins now. Move. The cubs jumped up. Their calm shattered. Their ears went flat against their heads. Their fur stood up. Fear and confusion filled their golden eyes. Taiho moved to the front of the group. He was the biggest. It was his job to protect the others. He placed himself between Greth and the smaller cubs, his body tense and ready. Yuna stood up slowly. Excuse me. You are disrupting their quiet time. We have a schedule. Silence. Human. Greth did not even look at her. His eyes were fixed on the cubs. You have made them soft, pathetic. Today they will learn what it means to be Valorant. He walked toward Taiho. His steps were heavy. His presence was overwhelming. He was everything a Valorant warrior should be. Strong, fierce, terrifying. You, he said to Taiho. You think you are the leader of this pack. Show me. Attack me. Prove your strength. Taiho did not move. Attack. Greth commanded again. This is what you were born for. This is your nature. Show me your claws. Show me your teeth. Still, Taiho did not move. But something strange happened instead. He looked at Yuna. The small human woman shook her head slightly. Just a tiny movement. No. Taiho relaxed. His claws stayed hidden. His teeth stayed covered. Greth could not believe what he was seeing. A Valorant cub had just looked to a human for permission. This was unthinkable. This was against everything he knew. What have you done to them? He growled at Yuna. Then he reached for Toho's scruff, a thick fur at the back of his neck. In Valorant culture, grabbing the scruff was how adults controlled cubs. It was meant to show dominance. He never completed the motion. Around him, the other 11 cubs began to move. They did not attack. They did not snarl or growl. They simply walked forward and stood in a line between Greth and YUN-11 young Valoran, shoulder to shoulder, facing an adult of their own kind. They were protecting their human. Greth stepped back. For the first time in his life, he felt something close to fear. Not because the cubs were threatening him, but because they were not. They were calm, controlled, united. They were acting like a true pack, and they had chosen a human as their leader. "What is this?" he whispered. YUN walked forward. The cubs parted to let her through, like water flowing around a stone. She stopped in front of Greth and looked up at him. She was so small compared to him. The top of her head barely reached his chest, but she did not seem small. "They are not weak," she said. Her voice was quiet but firm. "They are not soft. They are children who finally feel safe. Children who finally trust someone to take care of them." She held up her tablet. "You scared them. Their stress levels are now very high. It will take at least an hour to calm them down again." She met his eyes without fear. "Please leave." Greth wanted to argue. He wanted to tell her that she was wrong, that she did not understand Valoran ways. But the evidence was right in front of him. The cubs were not attacking him. They were not attacking her. They were standing together as a unit. Calm and disciplined. This was exactly what the Academy had hoped for, and a human had achieved it in 2 months. Greth turned and walked out of the training room without another word. The door closed behind him with a heavy sound. In the observation room, Commander Veth let out a breath he did not know he was holding. Beside him, Pick's hands were shaking. "That could have ended very badly," Pick said. Veth nodded. "But it did not. Because of her." He watched as Yuna gathered the cubs around her. She sat down on the floor and began to hum her soft song. One by one, the cubs relaxed. They pressed close to her, seeking comfort. Within minutes, they were calm again. "She is remarkable," Veth said quietly. "Sir," Pick asked, "what do we do about Instructor Greth?" Veth thought for a moment. Nothing. He needed to see this. He needed to understand that strength is not just about muscles and claws. He paused. I think, deep down, he already knew that. He was just too proud to admit it. Below, Yuna had started reading stories again. Her soft voice filled the training room. The cubs listened with their eyes half closed, peaceful and content. They did not care that she was human. They did not care that she was small and soft. She was their family now, and no one would ever take that away from them. 3 months passed. The cubs grew bigger and stronger every day. Taiho was now almost as large as an adult Valoran, though he still had years of growing left to do. Even little Bomi had doubled in size, but no matter how big they got, they still followed their schedule. They still took their naps. They still listened to Yuna. The Academy had never seen anything like it. Then the unthinkable happened. It started with an alarm. A loud, terrible sound that echoed through every corridor of Station Orith 7. Red lights flashed on the walls. Automated voices announced emergency protocols. In the training compound, Yuna looked up from her tablet. The cubs stirred around her, their ears turning toward the sound. What is happening? She asked the room's communication system. A panicked voice answered. It was Pick. Containment failure in Sector 12. Sketh Swarm has been released. All personnel must shelter in place. I repeat, all personnel must shelter in place. Yuna felt her blood turn cold. She had read about Sketh in the Academy's files. They were parasitic creatures from a dead world. Each one was the size of a large dog, with hard shells, many legs, and mouths full of razor-sharp teeth. They ate warm-blooded creatures. They were fast, vicious, and nearly impossible to stop, and they were loose on the station. "Yuna," Pig's voice crackled through the speaker. "Stay where you are. Security teams are responding. Do not open the door for anyone." "Understood," Yuna replied. But her hands were shaking. The cubs could sense her fear. They gathered around her, pressing close. Taiho stood at her shoulder, his golden eyes fixed on the door. A low growl rumbled in his chest. "It is okay," Yuna told them. She did not feel okay, but she made her voice calm anyway. "We are safe here. We just need to wait." Minutes passed. The alarms kept screaming. Through the thick walls, Yuna could hear distant shouts, weapons firing, screams. Then something hit the training compound door. The cubs jumped. Bomi whimpered and pressed herself against Yuna's leg. Another hit. The metal door bent inward. A third hit. The door flew off its frame and crashed to the floor. 3 Sketh poured into the room. They were horrible. Their shells were dark red, almost black. Their many eyes reflected the light like wet stones. Their mouths opened to show rows of teeth that could bite through bone. Behind them, through the broken doorway, Yuna could see more Sketh coming. There was no time to think. No time to be afraid. She grabbed Bomi and pushed her toward the back of the room. "All of you behind me, now." The cubs obeyed instantly. Not because of instinct. Not because of hierarchy. They obeyed because Yuna told them to. The same voice that told them when to eat, when to sleep, when to play. That voice was now telling them to stay safe. They trusted that voice completely. Yuna grabbed the nearest thing she could find. It was a metal pole used for feeding the cubs during their early days. It was not a weapon, but it was better than nothing. She stood between the Sketh and her children. "You do not come near my kids," she said. That the Sketh did not understand words. They only understood hunger. They charged. Yuna swung the pole with all her strength. It connected with the first Sketh shell with a loud crack. The creature stumbled, but did not fall. Its brothers kept coming. She swung again. And again, but she was just one small human. The Sketh were fast and many. One of them got past her guard and slashed its claws across her arm. Blood sprayed across the floor. Yuna screamed but did not fall. She swung the pole again, knocking the Sketh back. Another one bit into her shoulder. She felt fire explode through her body. Still, she did not move from her spot. Behind her, she could hear the cubs crying. They wanted to help. They wanted to fight. But she had told them to stay back. She had told them to stay safe. They trusted her. More Sketh poured through the door. 5, 8, 10. Yuna could not count them anymore. Her vision was getting blurry. Her blood made the floor slippery under her feet. She fell to one knee. Sketh lunged at her face. And then Taiho could not hold back anymore. The young Valoran flew past Yuna like a silver storm. His claws, which could cut through starship metal, tore through the Sketh shell like it was made of paper. The creature died before it knew what happened. Taiho did not stop. He could not stop. Yuna was hurt. Yuna was bleeding. The only person who had ever truly cared for him, who had shown him that there was more to life than fear and anger, was in danger. He would not let her die. The other cubs followed their brother. 11 young Valoran joined the fight. They were not as big as adults. They were not fully trained. But they fought with something the Sketh could not understand. They fought for love. In 4 minutes. It was over. The security team arrived to find Yuna sitting on the floor, bleeding from many wounds. She was humming softly. Around her, 12 Valoran cubs sat in a protective circle. Their silver fur was stained with Sketh blood. More than 20 Sketh bodies lay scattered across the room. Torn apart. Destroyed. What happened here? The security chief demanded. Yuna looked up. Her face was pale. Her eyes were tired. but she was smiling. "They tried to hurt my children," she said. The children disagreed. She passed out before she could say anything more. Yuna spent 2 weeks in the medical bay. Her wounds were serious. The doctors said she was lucky to be alive. Every day, without fail, the cubs tried to visit her dad at first. The medical staff refused. Valorant cubs in a hospital? Impossible. Too dangerous. But the cubs would not eat. They would not sleep. They would not do anything until they could see their human. Commander Veth finally ordered the staff to allow supervised visits. Every afternoon, Yuna would wake up from her healing sleep to find 12 massive creatures pressed against the windows of her room. Taiho would put his paw against the glass. Bomi would cry softly until Yuna waved at her. They waited for her. They needed her, and she needed them too. When Yuna finally left the medical bay, walking slowly on still healing legs, the cubs surrounded her in seconds. They pressed their heads against her body. They made soft sounds of joy. They nearly knocked her over with their love. Yuna laughed and cried at the same time. "I missed you too," she whispered. "I missed you all so much." Watching from the observation room, Commander Veth wiped something from his eye. He pretended it was dust up beside him. Pick smiled. "Sir, I think we have witnessed something very rare." "What is that?" "A family being born." Veth nodded. He could not argue with that. 6 months after the Sketh attack, Commander Veth stood before the Galactic Council. The council chamber was enormous. Representatives from 100 different species sat in rising rows of seats, all looking down at him. Veth had faced armies without fear, but speaking to politicians always made him nervous. "The Valorant integration program has been a complete success," he announced. His voice echoed through the chamber. "The 12 cubs have exceeded all expectations. They showed discipline, self-control, and teamwork that we have never seen in Valorant Young before." A council member from the Thelon delegation leaned forward. The Thelon were thin, pale creatures who could read minds. They always made Veth uncomfortable. "You say this success comes from a human caretaker?" the Thelon asked. "A maintenance worker with no military training?" "I say this success comes from Han Yuna recognizing something that everyone else missed," Veth replied. He pressed a button and a holographic display appeared in the center of the chamber. It showed data and charts from the past 6 months. "Valorant cubs are not naturally violent," Veth explained. "They are naturally scared. These 12 cubs were orphans. They lost their parents. They lost their home. They were brought to a strange place and surrounded by strangers who treated them like dangerous animals." He changed the display to show images of the cubs during their early days at the academy, snarling, attacking, destroying. They acted out because they were afraid, because no one made them feel safe. Every handler who entered their compound tried to control them through force. That only made things worse. Another button. Now the display showed Yuna sitting with the cubs, reading to them, playing with them, sleeping in a pile with them. Han Yuna did something different. She gave them routine. She gave them kindness. She gave them someone they could trust. Veth paused. She gave them a family. The council chamber was silent. Every representative was staring at the images of the small human woman surrounded by massive predator cubs. "The Academy has officially adopted what we call the Yuna Protocol," Veth continued. "All training programs now include structured schedules, rest periods, and socialization exercises. We have seen improvement across every species group." He smiled slightly. "Even our adult recruits are performing better now that they are getting enough sleep." The Thelon representative spoke again. "What are your plans for the cubs going forward?" "When they reach maturity in a few years, they will begin formal combat training. But they will not be ordinary soldiers." Veth stood a little taller. They will be the first Valorant Special Operations Unit raised with human emotional intelligence training. We believe they will be the most effective warriors the galaxy has ever seen. Not because they are the strongest or the fastest, but because they know what they are fighting for. After the council meeting, Veth returned to Station Orth 7. He had one more stop to make. The training compound had been renamed. A sign above the door read the Han Wing in several languages. Yuna had complained about this. She said it was embarrassing. But Veth had insisted. Inside, afternoon quiet time was in effect. Yuna sat in her usual spot, surrounded by cubs. They were getting very big now. Taiho's head alone was almost as large as Yuna's entire body. But he still rested that head on her lap, just like he had done months ago. His eyes were closed. A deep rumbling sound came from his chest. The other cubs were arranged around them. Some were sleeping. Some were quietly chewing on toys. Bomi was pressed against Yuna's side, her white fur soft against the human's arm. Instructor Greth stood in the doorway. He had been watching for several minutes before Yuna noticed him. "Can I help you?" she asked quietly, not wanting to disturb the cubs. Greth walked forward slowly. He moved differently now. Less aggressive. More thoughtful. "I do not understand humans," he said. "What do you mean?" He sat down on the floor across from her. It was a strange sight. One of the most feared warriors in the galaxy, sitting cross-legged like a child. "You are small," he said. "You have no claws, no armor, no natural weapons. You could not survive 1 minute against any of the species in this academy." Yuna nodded. This was all true. "And yet you walked into this room when there were 12 wild Valorant cubs who had hurt everyone who came before you. You sat down. You made yourself even more vulnerable." Greth shook his head slowly. "Why?" Yuna thought about the question for a moment. "Because they were not wild," she said finally. "They were scared. And scared children need someone to be brave for them." She gently scratched behind Taiho's ear. The cub rumbled happily. "I was not being brave for myself. I was being brave for them." Greth was quiet for a long time. "I was wrong about you," he said at last. "I thought you were making them weak. But I understand now. You were making them whole." He lowered his head, a sign of deep respect in Valorant culture. "They will be the finest warriors our people have ever produced. Because of you." Yuna felt her eyes grow wet. She blinked quickly. "Thank you, Greth. That means a lot." The Valorant warrior stood up. "The council has requested that you develop training programs for other species. There are Kizari hatchlings who need help. Grothian young who have lost their families. Many others." Yuna looked at the cubs around her. They were her first children, her first success. Could she really do this again with different species? "I will need help," she said. "I cannot do this alone." "You will have it," Greth promised. "The academy is already building a larger facility. Many people want to learn your methods." He turned to leave, then stopped at the door. "One more thing," he said. "I have been assigned as the Cubs' combat trainer, but I would like to learn from you first. If you will teach me." Yuna smiled. "Come back tomorrow. We start at 6 in the morning, and we do not skip nap time." Greth showed his teeth. This time, it was actually a smile. "I would not dream of it." Years later, the 12 Valorant of the Han Wing became the most famous special operations unit in galactic history. They were called the Silver Guard. They fought in dozens of battles. They saved thousands of lives. They never lost a single mission. Journalists would often ask Taiho, now a massive and legendary warrior, about his training. He would always say the same thing. "The galaxy taught us how to fight. Yuna taught us what to fight for. She taught us that true strength is not about hurting others. It is about protecting those who cannot protect themselves." The journalist would nod and write this down. Then they would ask the question everyone wanted answered. Is it true that your entire unit goes dark every day at 1 in the afternoon? That you take no missions, answer no calls, have no meetings during that time? Taiho would smile. It looked terrifying on a Valoran face, but it was genuine. Nap time is sacred, he would say. It always will be. Far across the galaxy, on a station that had become a school for lost children of all species, Han Yuna would be doing the same thing she had always done, sitting, humming, surrounded by children who loved her. Some things never changed. Some things should never change. Every day, at exactly 1 o'clock, the entire Galactic Military Academy went quiet. Training stopped. Meetings ended. Weapons were put away, because nap time was sacred. It always would be. The end.